All right, I spent tons of time making this beautiful video and buffered it, did the whole thing, and realized you could just see my face, no math. So I'm redoing the video, but I'm just going to keep my work because just to save time and all that jazz. Okay, this is part 2 on partial fraction decomposition on kind of an ugly one. All right, so after you get your, factors are here. So this is a single factor. This is a single factor. This is another single factor. This is what, linear? So a step down is constant. This was a quadratic, step down is linear. This is quadratic, step down is linear. All right, multiply by the 3 factors because your goal is to cancel the denominator. So these 3 cancel here. The x part cancels that, you're left with that. This part cancels, you're left with this. Now remember, this is a binomial with those things. And then you cancel that x squared, what was it, minus 5 or whatever it was. And then again, binomial times that. All right, so the next step is you're going to get all of this. Okay, that's your left side. Then on this side, you're going to get the a times all of that. Now, in the first step, we figure out that's 2, but it should be initially written like that. Bx plus c in parentheses times all of that. And then x and that with all of that. So that is what you are going to be using to try to figure things out. Okay, so your goal is to figure out what A, B, where's my C? C, D, and E equal. Okay, the only pretty number here is x equaling 0 because 0 will knock that guy out and 0 will knock that out. Okay, x squared plus 1, unfortunately, would be imaginary numbers like I and a negative I. We don't do that. And then the minus 5 would be x squared minus 5 would give you square root of 5. And a negative square root of 5, again, we don't do that either. Not pretty numbers. So our goal is we have control over input. Output is done by the formula, but you have control over input. So pick friendly input. So 0 is the only really nice one. All right. So step number 1, I'm going to sub in 0. And of course, this is 0, 0, 0, 0. I get a negative 10 right there. Now, sub in 0 here, that goes away, 0 there, that goes away. Okay, so what do I have here? And remember, that's an A because I'm just solving it here. A, sub in 0, you get 1. Sub in 0, you get a negative 5. Multiply those, you get a negative 5. Divide both sides, A is 2. And so what I went ahead is I just went ahead and put 2 in there for A so that when I sub in other values, I don't forget that I know what A is. Okay, I don't want to go back to like, oh, A is a variable. No, we know it's 2. So let's just kind of solve for the other guys. All right. So now the goal is we have how many unknowns now? We have B, C, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we have 4 variables, we need 4 equations to solve this, okay? This one doesn't count because that gave us A is 2, because otherwise we need 5. 5 variables, 5 equations. All right. So I'm going to pick friendly numbers. They're not great because they don't cause zeros, but I'm going to sub in 1. So what I did is I subbed in 1 and I got 2 and I got 3 minus 8 minus 9 minus 10. Now, what I would do is just do that on Desmos. I would just type that all in and I would type 2 times parentheses 1 to the 4th, 3 parentheses both sides to the 3rd and so forth. That way you can edit it as we change our numbers. All right. And then I did the same thing over here. So we know that's 2. Sub 1 in. 1 squared plus 1 is 2. Sub 1 in. 1 squared minus 5 is negative 4. Do the same thing over here. Sub 1 in, you get B plus C, a 1 and a negative 4. Sub a 1 in, you get D plus E, a 1 and what, a 2. And I just wrote all of that math down, okay? Now, the left side, all of this, and again, you can do it on a calculator, is a negative 22. This is glued together, okay, that's a negative 16. Here, this part you have to multiply first, negative 4, and distribute. Negative 4, that's where those come in. Again, multiply these first, you get 2, distribute 2D and 2E. Now, initially, I wrote this, I added my 16 both sides, and I had a negative 6 equals here. But the way matrices work are always, like first variable, second, third, fourth equal to an answer. So I just cross that off, put that negative 6 over there. Okay, wrote it the other direction. All right, then I subbed in a negative 2. Okay, and again, I just did this on my calculator, or no, sorry, positive 2. So again, on Desmos, I just went ahead and if you put parentheses, it makes it editable, which is nice. So I did 2 parentheses, positive 2, end of parentheses, what, raised to the 4th power, go over, what is that, plus 3, oopsie, plus 3, well, let me get over that and delete 3, parentheses, and then what do I have, 2 cubed on that one, and then over minus 8, parentheses, and again, we're subbing in what, 2, end of parentheses, and that's what, squared, and then minus 9, parentheses, and I am subbing in 2, minus 10. And I got a -4. That's what I put. Okay, so I just let Desmos do that whole left side. The nice thing is by putting parentheses, I'm going to edit some other stuff. I can just edit. I don't need to retype in it. All right, so I got -4. And again, you can use a calculator for the right side too. Right, we know A is 2. We're subbing in what, 2. So that would be 4 plus 1 is 5. And then sub in 2 here. 4 minus 5 is a -1. Sub in 2 here, you get 2b plus c. A 2, 4 minus 5 is a -1. And then on the bottom part here, you get d plus e, because that's 1. You get a 1, and then 1 squared plus 1 is 2. Okay, now again, this part, you know, I can do all the math for that. What is that, 10? That's going to be a -10. But over here, you're going to multiply these first. See that -2? And then you're going to distribute that. So that's going to be a -4b, -2c. And then down here, 2 and 5 is 10. I'm going to get 20d and 10e, okay? And this guy over here is going to be a -10, okay? So I'm going to show you that on my next page, okay? So that's what I got on my next page. Okay, again, I'm going to add 10 to both sides, and I want all of these guys equal to a number. So instead of having my 6 over there, I just crossed off and put =6 over here. Because if 6 equals this, then this has to equal 6. Doesn't matter. And I highlighted it because this is my second equation. All right, now I need to find my third equation. So I went back. Usually I don't sub in negatives, but because we had that 4th power, I really didn't want to sub in 3. We're going to get big numbers. And, you know, I already had 2 on my calculator here, or computer. So what I did is I just edited all these and said, okay, fine. I'm going to call that -2 for my input, -2. And where am I at? Arrow over -2. And then go over here. Is that my last -2, I think? -2, and I got a -16. So I just let my MATLAB, or I'm sorry, Desmos do that. Then I did the same thing. I went back to this formula. We know A is 2, subbed in a -2. So a negative times negative is a positive. So that's 4 plus 1 is 5. A -2 times a -2, +4, -1. -2, and then, you know, -1. I just subbed in. So this is like a -2b plus c, -2d plus e. So I just subbed it in, okay? So when I did that, you can see these are all the answers I got. Okay, now, so I went ahead and multiplied. 2, 5, -1, that's a -10. Here, -1 times that is a +2, and I distributed. So -4b, or +2c, sorry. Same thing over here. I did this math, and I got a -10. Distribute +20, -10e, okay? Add the 10 to both sides. I got -6 equals all this stuff. And again, I brought that over. That's my third equation, okay? Finally, the last one. Okay, I'm going to sub in a -1. Again, back into that original thing. And again, I usually don't pick negatives, but we have such huge numbers here, like 4th power and stuff like that. So again, I just delete, put a -1, delete, put -1, go over, delete, -1, and change this guy to a -1. All right. Oh, it didn't like something. Why not? What's wrong? Oh, it helps if you put a -1 there, huh? All right, I got a -10. Okay, so I'm just letting Desmos do the math. All right, so that's this side. Okay, now you can use a calculator on this side too, but I just did it in my head, but I subbed it in, and then I got a -16, subbed it in. Over here I got 4, distributed, okay, and got my -4b and +4c. Did this math, got a -2. A negative times negative is a +2d, -2e. Again, equals a +6. So if 6 equals all this, then all this has to equal 6. Okay. Now, you do not want to solve systems of equations. I don't know what you remember about systems of equations, but it would be like, you know, if I give you a problem similar to like 2x plus 3y equals 8, and then 3x minus 4y equals 10, and you multiply all of this by 4 to get a 12, all of this by 3, like the elimination method to get a 12, and then you add down, if you kind of remember your algebra, 30, and then you add down and you get 17x because these cancel, equals 62, divide by 17, and then you figure out what x equals, and then remember you would sub back into y. But if you have 4 variables and 4 equations, you have to do that a lot. So instead, we are going to use DESMOS Matrix, and later I'll teach you how to do easy ones by hand. But basically, this is how a matrix works, is you line up all your variables. We don't have A, because remember, we know A is what was A? We knew A is 2, right from the get-go. So, and this is matrix A, by the way. So we're not going to put in A. All right, so we have B's, C, D's, E's, and all our answers. So what I'm doing is I'm taking those 4 equations, equation 1, equation 2, 3, and 4 that we got when we subbed in somewhat nice numbers, and we're going to have the computer solve this. Okay, so I'm going to pause. Everything with matrices is RC Cola, okay, rows and columns. So I have 4 rows and 5 columns. So I'm going to go to DESMOS Matrix and type in this guy. Okay, so I'm going to pause for a second and go to DESMOS Matrix. All right, so I Googled DESMOS Matrix, okay, and I hit new matrix, typed in the rows and the columns. Rows go sideways, columns hold up things up like a coliseum, okay? So what you do is just edit those coefficients, all right? So let me go back here for a second. So what I did is I took the formulas. You only write the coefficients, okay? So, sorry, we don't want that yet. The numbers in front. So you ignore the B, you ignore the C, ignore the D, ignore the E. And so this is your B column, C, D, you don't need to write them. And then just the coefficients. And we're going to do reduced row echelon form. And what that does is it kind of, it does pivots on the matrix C, and we'll learn what those are later. And those pivots will solve it. So I'm going to hit enter. Reduce row echelon form A. And what it will do is solve it. All right, so what it's telling you is that this is your answer to B, because remember, we didn't include A in this. All right, this is your answer to C. This is your answer to D. That last column is your answer. This is your answers to E. Okay, so I rewrote that here. Give me a second, I might sneeze. Oh, excuse me. All right. So this is what DESMOS gave you after, so it solved it for you basically. So B is the 0, C is the 2, D is that guy, and E is that guy. Okay, and remember, we already know that A is 2 because that's the pretty one we solved in with x equals 0. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to sub those answers in, because remember, we broke it into partial fractions. Now we know what A is. A is 2. We'll rewrite it pretty in a little bit. B is 0. So what that means is there is no x part. We didn't know that, but now we do. C is 2. And then D is also 0. So there really wasn't an x part. And E was 1. All right. So then if I rewrite this nice, it's going to be 2 over x plus 2 over x squared plus 1 plus, what is that? 1 over x squared minus 5. That is your answer to converting this back into an addition problem, again, which is not easy. It's not fun. It is a lot of work, okay? But sometimes in calculus, you know, you need to do this because maybe you can do integration on this by parts, but you can't do this. You know, maybe you need to break it up in some different format so that you can do the math that you want to do on it, which we do that a lot in calculus. We just rewrite things in a form that works better for us. All right. Hopefully that helps. Again, it's tricky stuff, but I'm confident you guys can figure it out. All right. Good luck. Bye-bye.